Born in the shadows of the Cold War, the U-2 spy plane was the CIA's choice for a secret program called Bald Eagle. They were looking for a surveillance platform that could operate above 70,000 feet with a range of 3,000 miles. Kelly Johnson at his Skunk Works had the answer. He called it the U-2, and it could overfly the Soviet Union unrestrained. At least for 3 years, that is. In 1960, U-2 pilot Francis Gary Powers was shot down, convicted, and imprisoned for espionage. But the program continued.
The U-2 was designed as a high-altitude penetrator to overfly the Soviet Union to discover the perceived bomber gap. And what the U-2 did confirm was that there was not a bomber and missile gap like we thought. And as the U-2 gained in popularity in the intelligence community, there was a need for it to get bigger, to carry more things and stay up longer. So the R model U-2 came out in 1968. And this is a variation of that R model. It was about 40% larger than the original U-2. The fuselage grew to about 60 feet, 63 feet, and the wingspan is now 104 feet as opposed to 80 feet in older versions. That increased the wing square footage by over 600, and the lift, of course, went along with that. So we can stay up for a longer period of time. And we have been involved in basically every hot spot you could imagine over the years. We're especially busy now post-Desert Storm. We're in the Pacific, we're in the Eastern Mediterranean, we're in the Adriatic, we're over in Southwest Asia. Our ops tempo is fairly high, and I know the pilots enjoy every minute of it.
When we come back, we'll get a dawn-to-dusk briefing of a typical U-2 mission. We asked Chuck to describe a typical mission for a U-2 pilot.
2.5 hours before a mission, we get up and we shower. We eat a good breakfast, a high-protein breakfast. We get pre-briefed on the areas that we're going to be going into from the intelligence community, from the weather community, what kind of thunderstorms we can expect on return, or how clear it's going to be, or how the winds will be. And then the pilot goes and suits up in a full pressure suit. And the reason that we have a full pressure suit as a redundant system is because of the high altitude regime that we're in. Above 50,000 feet, we might as well be on the moon because of the significant pressure differential. The two reasons that we have a pressure suit are Boyle's Law and Armstrong's Line. That's why we need a pressure suit that's much like the astronauts wear. In fact, you could walk on the moon with the suit we have. So after the pilot suits up, we have another pilot that's pre-flighting the airplane, getting it ready for takeoff, and the folks from the Physiological Support Division bring our pilot out and integrate him in the aircraft. And once the pilot's loaded up and in, we go to engine start, taxi out. Now, I must say, taxiing this airplane is even a challenge. Our tail gear turns 6.5 degrees left or right of center. And what that means is if we are turning into the wind, our turn radius is about 189 feet. If we're turning away from the wind, our turn radius is in excess of 300 feet. So if we come up on a significant turn on a taxiway, it could be a real challenge to the pilot. The airplane climbs out at well in excess of 14,000, 15,000 feet per minute initially, and the pilot will go up and fly his assigned mission. It could be a surveillance mission, it could be a reconnaissance mission, a photo mission, or a radar mission, and all of them have their particular challenges associated with them. He'll go out in the area of surveillance, and after he's done, he's got to get ready to come back to perhaps the most challenging thing he's experienced, setting the enemy aside, setting the monitoring of the mission equipment and operating the mission equipment. He's got to descend and land. This airplane from altitude takes about 35 minutes to come down, and that's with all the drag devices handled. We drop the gear, we put out the speed brakes, we have to put up the spoilers, and it still takes that long to come down. We have our mobile officer, who's another pilot, in a chase car that chases him down the runway as a margin of safety and calls out his altitudes and any degrees of craft. Keep in mind, he's been up more than likely 7, 8, 9 hours, and he's been dehydrated, he's fatigued, he's got a pressure suit on, so his dexterity is somewhat degraded. So that little bit of help, that margin of safety, that mobile officer is necessary. He chases him down the runway, calls out the altitudes and degrees of craft, and our pilot has to stall it to land it from about the 2-foot regime. Keep in mind that the landing gear is a tandem or a bicycle-like landing gear. He's got to do a balancing act even as he's rolling out. He'll roll out, go down about 10 or 15 knots, let the wingtip drop off on a skid because the pogos are out, if you remember. And the ground crews will come back in and insert the pogos, and he'll taxi depart. And that'll wrap up a mission.